Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. Hey, Positive Filter listeners, it's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Filter. Today I have a special guest. I say that every episode because everyone is special to me. But I do have a special, I would say, Mason celebrity. So if you're any affiliation with George Mason University, you would have been probably rocked out to his music at a basketball game or at a convocation. I have with me today Mr. Doc Nix. And so I just want to give a little introduction. Doc Nix, introduce yourself for the listeners.
All right. Thanks for having me, Phil. My name is Michael Nickens. I'm a doctor of music, and that stage name of Doc Nix is just an abbreviation of Dr. Nickens. And I've been teaching at Mason for 12 years. I'm in the middle of my 13th year, and the band program has been growing an athletic band program has been just an honor and a huge pleasure. You know, meeting so many folks and so many very hardworking, enthusiastic folks. We turn that into achievement over and over again. The band has been recognized in many different ways, internally and externally. Probably some of the most notable are times when they've been called out as some of the top in the nation. 2008 when we were in the NCAA tournament versus Notre Dame. We only played one game, and the press voted us the most spirited band of the whole tournament, even though we were only in one game that we lost.
Yeah.
And then a few years go by from there. We created a competitive indoor drum line that won Open Class of Winter Guard International in 2012. Then, somewhere around 2013 or so, Bleacher Report put out an article calling us the most entertaining band in college basketball. And then 2015 comes around, and the NCAA calls us out as the top band in college basketball. So we just keep moving on from there. Competitive Drumline continues to do well. They've been a world-class finalist 3 times. The color guard is making huge strides, jumping from A class to Open Class, winning some regionals and making it into Open Class finals, and got some great momentum for this year as well. We've serving around the community with our splinter cells of the Green Machine. Yep. We have a fife and drum corps and our New Orleans style brass band, a Civil War era brass band, rock bands and drum lines, and then sometimes we just bring the monster out and rock out some sort of community event or whatever it needs to be. So that's what we've been up to. We got about close to between 350 and 400 students involved, and graduates. Our graduates are out working in all kinds of ways. Particularly a lot of them we have professional musicians and music teachers and performers and people who've gone into other fields, and everyone stays in touch really well. We have a great time getting together. So it's just kind of become a very successful and energetic ecosystem of people who are involved in lots of different manners, finding ways that work best for them, and that's sort of the glue that keeps it all together. Making sure that people get to be what they want to be, and hopefully discover that they could be more than they realize, but at the same time never trying to do the square pegs and round hole thing. Just right. always trying to make sure I meet people where they are best I can anyway, and then we just all stick together because of that.
Well, that was quite an introduction, and you list off lots of accolades and lots of things about the band. But as people know, we always see the people at the end of their journey, and so we're going to kind of go back a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your, where this passion for music started, your background in music.
Definitely started as a curiosity. Sitting at the piano at my Aunt Noni's house and one thing, just like the random sitting and probably key smashing when you're little. You're not.
Yeah.
It's no more than just the fascination that you can make sound with this thing. And my sister, a couple years older than me, so she was always a little further ahead. Like she's the one that kind of sort of showed me that the notes on the page and how it fits with the staff and how you can find which note it is based on what the key is, based on which key to push down, based on which line of the staff the note is on. And she kind of got me started right at the beginning. And then you hear people play a little melody, and then you see if you can figure it out, whether it be watching their fingers or listening or some combination of the both. And I found that I could do that at an early age. Is if I heard something and saw somebody play it, I could mimic it.
So that passion for music, is it a very family? You're from a musical family, a very music oriented family. You said your older sister.
Yeah,
How about your parents? They do music?
like no. There are no professional musicians or music teachers that I could pull out, but that doesn't necessarily mean people weren't heavily involved. Always playing an instrument or music lovers or concert goers or whatever the thing is. As our families, we have a lot of physicians and people in the medical field. So that's a lot of pressure to maybe it's partly of a status or an achievement expectation, or maybe it's of the reality of the limitations of what a person of color could be as a professional throughout the decades. And so that was something that if the skill is there and the desire is there, that could be made happen, to take care of a community that maybe isn't being taken care of well or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd say where I'm at, to skip way ahead now, where I'm at right now might reflect that a little better. Not that I don't want to connect with everybody. I do want to connect with everybody, but I also find that there's communities of young people that are slipping through cracks that I'm not sure anybody really means to be there, or I can't say nobody means for them to be there, but there's a lot of folks that probably, if they understood what was happening, would be willing to do more. This is hard to get everybody's attention on every single thing. So it's like I definitely enjoy taking care of communities and music that maybe maybe the status quo wasn't really designed to handle, and so I see myself as capable and definitely willing to get in there and get my hands dirty and try to figure that out. So anyway, back, it's like, think about every teacher you had that sang in the classroom, every music class you went to, every youth group activity that had song, just...
You were doing it.
Just a big mix of lots of things. And I found that if I tried hard, I could do well. And, that athletics went all right for me. I played on sports. I played on my high school, freshman team. And, I used to row. Fun in PE class, trying out all the sports and whatever. Yeah. So it's like I always had a lot of fun playing sports. But there was something about when I'm in music, it's like there was like maybe I could point to efficiency. It's like
you were in a flow state maybe.
Yeah, in a way that I didn't really learn. For instance, in basketball, it took me honing it, playing my horn, improvising particularly, before I could go back to basketball and feel more free. I just wasn't coached in basketball the way that I was coached on my instrument. And then, like I said, particularly once I started pursuing jazz and getting taught, different ways to think about improvising, the looseness that's just essential. You cannot like play a compelling free melody if you're tight. It's just
right.
Your brain locks up, and then your body locks up, and then you can't make it happen. So once I started noticing, I do the same thing when I play basketball. Yeah. There's a certain anxiety, tightness. I get so worried about, am I playing well? Am I making every shot? Am I, like, all these things that you pick, of the 100 things that you should be thinking about or could be thinking about, you pick like 2 of them. And if you pick the wrong 2,
Yeah.
You know, so it's like if I'm only worried about I'm going to try and make every single one of my shots, well, no one makes every single one of the shots. And then I start getting down on myself because I'm not hitting shots, and it's like not paying attention to just running hard and just staying on my man and just making good passes and like trying to play some D. And it's like all these things that could really make for a positive experience. You know, as a 15-year-old kid, I got to make shots.
So,
and that's the only way to be thought of as being successful.
But music didn't have that.
Music didn't have that thing because with improvising, especially since we weren't really improvising in a manner that was ever in the spotlight. It was always in a classroom or a practice room or something like that. So it was a very personal journey, and it was sort of for me. It's like if I'm enjoying it, then that's all the success I ever needed.
Yeah, it's like it's having fun with it. Yeah.
And I have fun with success. The same way I would sit in a room by myself and play a video game.
Mm-hmm.
If I get through the game, then I'm successful. And it's like I don't really care if anybody ever knows, you know. So there's probably so many video games that I've played all the way through that nobody has ever known that I've played, you know.
But that was the same thing you had with music.
And
you would finish you'd play music and you'd be like, if I had an audience or not, I enjoyed the process.
That's totally it.
And you also went back. Well, we got to do a shout out. You went to West Potomac. I went to Mount Vernon.
That's right. Don't get that mixed up.
Yeah, don't. So shout out to the highway. Shout out to the highway. And you said that in the band, right? You're transitioning from basketball to playing in the band, the school band. When was it the moment where you were like, okay, when I graduate and I'm going to go to college after West Potomac, I want to study music?
I mean, I think just even stepping into the marching band my freshman year was a big clue because...
And freshman year of high school?
Yeah, freshman year of high school. I remember during band camp, we used to do these things called march-offs, and so like they teach you, you know.
Is it like Drumline, like the movie?
I mean, so yeah, so like
yeah, you have to get in the position.
I'm
right?
saying, yeah, like we're gonna teach you. In this case, though, it's like we're gonna teach you, let's say 10 commands.
Okay.
And that means forward march, backward march, you know, slides and flanks and just different ways to move.
Yeah.
And we're going to call them in time. And so there's a way you call the command and then you do the move. Call the command, do the move. And as a freshman, in my first week of being in marching, I won the thing.
Yes.
And so that
it was instant. Like I'm getting this. Right?
Yeah. Like it made me feel good, and I got to like the reward was I got to give commands to the drum majors, which was
and they were older kids. You're giving you're a freshman, giving commands to seniors.
Yes.
That's very empowering.
In front of everybody.
That's very empowering.
I was having fun with it. I don't remember necessarily being nervous about it. And I hope, and you can never know how this comes across. I hope I hope I made more friends than enemies. You know, but you understand how that could go wrong as well. And maybe if I really examined the past, I could find that I had to kind of repair some relationships because I might have hurt some feelings because I'm just, you know, a young person comes in. Who knows how I was coming. I certainly didn't necessarily mean to be arrogant.
But you're confident.
But if I was confident and you know maybe and we'll say I could definitely, you know, without any true evidence, I have the sense and am willing to admit that I was in danger of being clumsy with my confidence, and that could definitely come across as arrogance.
Yeah.
And if there was a taste of arrogance in there, you know, I'm a young man. What's supposed to happen? You know. But you know, I don't remember being often in a position where I was trying to make someone look bad.
So you did it as a freshman.
And
so that when as a freshman you were like, okay, and then you're going through high school.
So like you know,
like, this music. I'm gonna study music.
Well, part of it was just simply trying to make choices. So. I'm on the basketball team, and at certain times of the year, they just don't match up. You cannot do both. You can't do both at the highest level. And so, even though I'm on the team and there's a game, I made it into district band, and I have to be at district band. So the rehearsals from this time to this time, and then we have a game. And the question is, am I going to make it to the game? And in fact, I did make it to the game, but the coach was so ready for me to not be there that I didn't end up playing at all. And that's tough. That's tough to, you know, you put in your time all week and then you don't even get garbage time. It's like, you know, and so I just started to notice if I were to continue to sort of compromise even a coach's plan with his best intentions, it's hard to make both. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's supposed to sit there with two plans, variable if I make it or not. it made like as an adult thinking back on that, it makes perfect sense that he made a plan without me being there because he didn't know if I was going to be there or not. So he'd rather plan for me to not be there.
Right.
So then I have to make a choice. Either I set myself up so that I'm always there, or
you do band.
And in this case, the band, you know, like I said, it's just a different kind of effort. And
you got more reward. It seems like from what I'm hearing, you got a little bit more instant reward than basketball.
Well, like I said, it
was
was efficient, you know, and it wasn't necessarily just about the reward. It was how hard was I working to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say working hard, it's not like it wasn't difficult, but I had the tools to get myself there. So it's like, as a musician in the band, I had a private teacher from 6th grade. I was always like in my freshman year of high school. I was in my 4th year of steady weekly private lessons. So I had someone who was with one-on-one time, addressing my issues, my specific issues, and pushing me to improve.
Who is that person?
That's Dave Porter. In fact, he's on the faculty here. He teaches tuba here at Mason.
So full circle. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Cool. He helped you.
He taught me at the beginning, and then he was my student here. He did his doctorate, and I was his teacher.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Full circle.
We had a great time with that.
Sensei becomes I don't know.
Well, now we're working together, and you know, so yeah, it's like
that's really awesome. That's really awesome.
But so anyway, what I'm saying is, it's like, you know, obviously I see nowadays people do get basketball teachers, and they meet with them.
Clinics, they do the clinics. Yeah.
But they even do one-on-one.
Yeah,
people will hire one-on-one and take it like lessons, the same kind of way. Or they'll even have like a shooting coach and a dribbling coach and a conditioning coach. They do all that stuff. Well, we were able to do tuba lessons, and that was about it. And we weren't even aware that other stuff was possible. But you know, thinking back even then, you know, I remember many times, you know, mentors and people looking out for me saying things like, You'll be able to do music your whole life. Like athletics, you know, it's like when you're young and your joints still work, and you know, there's a window for that. And not that you couldn't become something else, could become a coach and you know, administrator or something like that. But it's like, I feel like the music that I do, so much of it is still in that same mindset of it's just really kind of for me, and I love to bring people into my world and share as much as possible. Like, I definitely, you know, enjoy playing public gigs, but I get the most satisfaction out of just working on something because I want to work on it, and writing something because I want to write it. And then if I end up in a situation because I have that as an asset, you know, I have a set of songs or a set of pieces as an asset that I can then, you know, present in a professional manner, then all the better.
Right.
But I haven't set myself up to live on that. You know what I'm saying? I'd live as a teacher, and then do that to add to myself, or do that to sort of fortify the way that I teach. You know, I have to keep my own I have to keep my own process going so that I can continue to have insight on it rather than just only leading other people through it. So the split really came when
coaching, not getting basketball time.
I just saw that there was much more available to me in the music world than there was as an athlete. And so I didn't come back my sophomore year.
You're done.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just...
Now, music, like, and, you know, you sold it as, for me, you said that you can have a career in music. So, but at the same time, you know, we hear the stories like people, not say failed musicians, but they study music and in college and have a hard time. When you told your parents the decision, I'm going to go to college, you studied music in college, I'm going to study this, what was their reaction? Like, I'm studying music rather than I'm going to study business or study, you know, something that you know, most people think you go to college to study something like that.
You know, my impression of my mother's reaction, first of all, I think she always knew I was trying to be a teacher.
Okay.
And framing it like that, our whole family's teachers.
Okay.
Three of my grandparents taught at Howard.
Okay.
So that's just
education.
Just a normal part of, you know, a normal part of who we are. Again, back to like, what could a person of color be? You know, with the right smarts, you can work in the medical field, but also another thing you can be is a teacher. Again,
educators. A lot of early black folks, you know,
turning around, taking care of your own community.
Yeah, exactly.
Where there was a need, and others wouldn't necessarily be willing to go into those communities and do that.
Educators, right.
So both of those things going on. I remember having the conversation with my grandfather, my father's father, and he was basically asking the same question. And even as a freshman in college, I had that answer of, well, I'm going to be a musician, but I'm going to be a teacher. And
okay, got it.
and that
Kind of suffice. They're like,
that
okay,
was
cool.
that's
like,
something they
it
could
wasn't
understand.
like it wasn't like, oh my, I'm gonna be a study music and try for Broadway or something like that. Like, oh, that might be risky. You're like, I'm gonna be a musician, have this passion for music, but like not say you're doing it to satisfy your parents, but their answer is like, well, there's always a job for a teacher, so he's got that
Yes.
locked up. So
I
you were
mean,
like
as long-
framing, you were framing it as such.
Yeah,
Like
and-
I will combine I guess a practical, sustainable career within education, but also incorporate my passion
Yes.
of music in it. Like, at least if I'm going to have to be a teacher, I'm going to teach something I love to teach.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And like,
And where'd you go to college?
so I started at James Madison,
Hey.
and then
Go Dukes.
Dukes.
Yeah.
And man, I had a great time in that marching band.
Yes.
Those were some fun
Royal Marching Royal Dukes. Yeah.
fun football games, and just to be in a band that size, it was about I think about close to 400 when I was in it, maybe
Yeah.
375 to 400, something like that. It's 500 now. It's enormous now.
Yep.
Not that 400 is not enormous.
Yeah.
And then I
So
think
you started at James Madison. Did you finish at James
no,
Madison?
no. I finished at Manhattan School of Music. I think
So what was the big shift to change? You think
maybe that's a podcast all by itself.
Okay, so
But I'll try to tie it up neatly and say, I
music.
didn't know myself well enough as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old to know that I, over a long period of time, wouldn't be as happy living in some place like Harrisonburg as I would be living somewhere else.
Okay. That's a good simple
Most
answer.
specifically, being around cities. It's like growing up here in the D.C. area,
Okay.
and then you move to Harrisonburg,
Yeah.
and then you start to notice all the things that a rural environment doesn't have.
Okay, straight up, that's real thought. Like,
And,
I went to JMU, but it's kind of a pocket. It's a bubble in its own.
Yeah.
But you're in Harrisonburg,
So
it's
for
very,
me,
very noticeable. Yeah.
Football was a lot of fun, and those football games were a lot of fun, and marching in the band was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do more than that.
Okay.
And one of the
Okay.
things I had access to around here was professional musicians
Yeah.
everywhere, and performing all the time, and particularly with the military bands, performing free all the time.
Gotcha.
So
Yep.
just as long as I could get myself somewhere, I could catch
Right.
all kinds of performances.
So more, you believe you had more experiential opportunities near a major metropolitan area,
Big time.
rather than Harrisonburg,
Yes.
which is something that it seems like for a very creative outlet, which is music, you had a very strategic approach to it, meaning like, not everyone, not saying atypical, but maybe atypical, a lot of musicians don't, see career aspects like you had. Like, I'm going to teach, I'm going to have education. Like, you're very strategic. Would you say that was kind of the atypical thing, or I'm just kind of reaching for that?
I definitely felt like there were ways I stood out in that environment, and it wasn't necessarily because I was ahead of or above anybody. It was just I was just deviated from that. I just was coming in with a different set and a different set of eyes and
Yeah.
different ideas about what kind of thing could be. And then one really interesting thing is, like, since I had access to this area and just incredible diversity of activities and things I was exposed to. At that time, going into that environment, there were other students who were very clear of their focus of a very singular path that they were on.
Yeah.
And I was trying to do 100 things.
Gotcha.
And so if I had decided that the single path was for me, then that would have been a fine place to stay.
Perfect.
But I was just so interested in a million things, so I moved from Harrisonburg to Harlem.
Wow.
And
that's it. Yeah, I'm on tangents, but I'm saying, wow, like you said, jazz. You go into like one of the hearts of black music,
of the planet. Of black culture. Exactly
Was it still? I mean, Harlem's a little different now, but when you went to Harlem, was it still a lot of that soul of the Renaissance stuff and pockets of jazz clubs and stuff like that?
The jazz clubs are the big brand name jazz clubs. They're all over the city. At that point, Birdland was up. Birdland was like at 109 or something like that. 105, 109, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then there were a couple other
Yeah.
Let's see. What was the name of that place? There was a place on like 104.
Okay.
It was like Ozzy's or something like that. It was a little small little place, but I walked past it every day going to class because I lived at 101 and I'd walk up to 122.
Okay.
So I mean, technically I was living Upper West Side, but since the school was at 122 and my friends were living all over the area, I was kicking around the city all over.
You got to see music and all that
Yeah.
all the time. That's awesome.
I can't remember what that place is. I'll see if I can figure it out.
I know. Did you feel it? Did you feel the soul of living in Harlem?
What was mainly was
like the environment. Did it evoke that history to you?
Well, the history is everywhere with buildings and murals and the history was all over the place. Just like the first time you accidentally walk past the Apollo. Bang.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like it was more than just the big brand name ideas. It was like you would get asked to play at an art gallery simply because you had your horn with you on a bus.
Okay.
And then you exchange phone numbers, and before you know it, you're on some gig with a bunch of strangers.
That's pretty dope.
And then someone's painting while you're improvising music.
Wow, that's pretty dope.
And that's just in a loft gallery space. It's not just complete underground. It may not even had been there months before, and it may not have been there months after that event. Just these little pop-up situations.
And those are opportunities you couldn't get in small town Harrisonburg.
Not at the scale. I mean, I can't say it would never happen, but not as often. And
yes,
there's just critical mass of creativity and creative people and people looking for opportunities and people looking to create their own opportunities.
Yeah.
And I'd say if there was talking about that singular path that I was deviating from that freshman year at JMU, I could say the thing that I felt the most, and I'm not saying that I was the only one, but the thing that was affecting me was realizing that I wanted to write my own music.
Yep.
I wanted to use tuba in different kinds of ways, particularly playing bebop. I wouldn't have been able to say those words then, but that is something that I was interested in and starting to learn how to do. Playing New Orleans jazz and things like that. And there weren't a bunch of other tuba players trying to do those things. And then there weren't opportunities in the jazz program for me to play.
Yeah.
So I would just play some fun duets with friends and things like that, but it didn't find its way into a class I could take or something like that. And then in New York, I didn't need to take it as a class because it was everywhere. Everybody, people just invited me to play on all kinds of different things, and then the opportunities were there, just like the kinds of artists that would come through Manhattan School of Music on just a given day because they had a personal connection, because they happened to be in the neighborhood. A master class gets set up the day of, and it just happened. Because they happen to be in town, they feel like stopping by, and then that turns into me spending part of a summer at Tanglewood in a jazz institute.
Okay,
things like that.
So let's kind of jump forward. So when was the first marching band or band that you taught, and how did you know, like, regardless of education, I want to be incorporated with being
So marching band has sort of a training program built into it.
Okay.
So you become a section leader and you make sure that your section can play all their music, and then, or maybe you get to be like some sort of like drill instructor. So you're helping people make them hit their spots and do the moves correctly and things like that. And then who knows what you are? You become a drum major, or maybe there's like an extra activity where you can like invent your own show for that, or put together your own small. So it's like there's lots of opportunities for you to kind of cut your teeth and lead something.
Okay.
All the way through, even from even middle school, you're section leaders.
So you were doing that earlier, but when was it like? Let's say to the scale of what you're doing here at Mason. When was your first like that kind of band? Like you were doing over students.
Sure. I mean, basically, as soon as I graduated high school, I'd end up teaching something. So
gotcha. Okay.
Come back to West Potomac and help with
gotcha.
moving their feet around, or teach the drum majors, or write the show, and it's just over time. In West Potomac, it was a lot, So I graduated in '94.
Yeah.
And the first time I wrote anything that could have been played at anything was actually my freshman year of high school, where we would play it in the bleachers at the football game. It was just one little, 16 measure little thing that would be a cheer, or we want to play some song that we, and so that actually is a direct path to the Green Machine, because it was that idea of we can play whatever we want at a game in the bleachers.
Yeah.
Write it yourself, and then that becomes the whole thing with the Green Machine. And then I marched. I did some competitive marching, and there was a drum and bugle corps called the Cadets. At the time, they were called the Cadets of Bergen County.
Yeah.
And I spent a summer on tour with them. So you're just set up in so many ways to, at the very least, get beginners through everything they need to get through. You know what I'm saying? Like, you may not necessarily come out of a season of drum corps ready to like write a show and win a competition, but you definitely can like be a valuable part of a staff and like help out with details and things like that. So then I wrote a show my junior year because there was a transition with the band director, and so my band director was on the way out and the new one was coming in, and we didn't know if we had a show, so I just decided to get ahead of it and try to write a show.
Gotcha.
And we didn't use it, but we read it, and it was too hard. And
yeah.
But it gave me that opportunity to be in a leadership role that way.
Okay.
And so then, since I kind of shown that was possible, over the next few summers, I'd be hired to teach drum majors. And here's part of the show I wrote. Gotcha. And then little by little, before you know it, I was writing in the entire show and leading the.
So you just basically, it was just throughout, even from high school on, this
piece by piece,
organic leading of a band was just always there.
Yes.
And it just came together.
And then as other band directors started to see the shows that we were doing, they'd hire me to do their show. So that started off with Annandale, was the first one I did outside of
Annandale High.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then Edison came along, and then I did Mount Vernon a few years, and Fairfax High School and Damascus High School, and
there you go.
Schools around. There's a couple schools in Michigan, and a school in Kansas City, and just
schools.
It just grows.
Now let's talk
about grows.
And so now there is a huge piece that I think that I see, regarding the band leadership. So we're talking about music and passion, but you're dealing with youth, the kids. What are some lessons you learned over time about, and things that you appreciate with that aspect? Because that is the educator aspect of, you're teaching other kids music or, life skills, or showing up to, for instance, I remember specifically you were very involved with your band. Your band came and did a little show for us at the JCPenney's event. And you still just come out, out of your time. The band was self-sufficient. These kids are playing perfectly, but you still just kind of like, it seemed like a mentorship thing. Like, you checking on them. It's like what part of the outside of the classroom things that you like to incorporate in with the kids?
So that jump to Annandale, when I started writing their show, they approach different. Every band approaches things a little differently, and their director at the time, his name is Jack Elgin. He's down at Oscar Smith, who's another school I write for, and for a lot of the band camps that I went to coming up were just at school. You just come to school a week early, and you're in the band room and on the field, and you just put your show together.
Yeah.
Well, Jack would take them to a camp. Like, you would pack up, and everyone would live in cabins on the side of a mountain in West Virginia where there was a field, and then he'd put the show together that way.
Yeah.
You don't have people ducking out for every dentist appointment. Parents aren't trying to be like, well, we're going on vacation for 2 days, so he'll be there at the beginning, but we're not,
and they can't catch up.
Yeah. All of it, you're there. If you're going to be in the show, you're there. And then, the first thing I noticed was there's a volleyball tournament. And so, when you have the kids 24 hours a day, you set your schedule up, and the stretching in the morning and some marching basics, and then you work on some visual, and then break for lunch, and work on some music, and put the music and the visual together in the late afternoon. You teach it until 9 or 10 at night. Yeah. Well, in the middle of the day, different sections would disappear for an hour throughout the week. And it was because there was a volleyball tournament going on. And it was a whole bracket system set up so that everyone would play for this, single elimination tournament down, or red round robin. I'm not sure how you did it. Anyway, you'd end up playing a bunch of volleyball in addition to doing band. And he would also, there's a pool at the campground, so every kid who was a licensed lifeguard had like pool duty, and then so there was time to swim, and so it's like, I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, this is summer camp. This is the same. This is like a youth group. He's treating the band as if it's a youth group that plays music, rather than being so focused on making the music, and it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to do what
Yeah.
do this thing that comes to this one end. He's like he was trying to make
Make
everybody friends, make everybody into a family,
Kid environment.
showing that people, and particularly with like the lifeguard thing, it's like you may be, the 20th trumpet player, but you're the charge when you're at the pool, and so it kind of balances things out, and you're able to think of each other differently because it's like I'm in charge when we're over here, but you're in charge when we're over there, and so all these natural things just would happen just because he was taking care of them more than just simply the one thing. And you watch that go by a few times and measure that against some of the other schools you're teaching at, and you just see. For me, I just saw something that was very appealing to me.
It's like the holistic approach of treating kids like kids and letting them be kids, but also tapping into their passion for music.
Yep.
So, but what? Okay, and I'm a big career counselor. What have been some, not inadvertent, but what have been some career lessons that you've taught to kids through music over time?
I mean, I'd have to give it some thought, but I mean, just shooting from the hip, I could say it always has to do with acting right.
Yep.
It always has to do with coming prepared with the things you need, speaking up when you don't have the things you need, owning up to it when you haven't done the things you were supposed to do.
Yeah. These are all professional skills of translation. Yeah.
And then flip it also, for me as a teacher, recognizing that if somebody's showing up and only doing 35% of what you asked, that is 100% for them. And so figuring out, what do you do about that? Like, can you still incorporate somebody who did a 100% effort, but it just didn't necessarily measure up to the,
someone else,
the widespread, standard.
Yeah.
But this person may have put in more effort. It may be harder for them to get to 35% than it is for someone else to get to 98%. That other person would
just naturally talented or something,
or just had everything going for them, and this other person didn't. And but you still recognize that they're better than they were when they walked in. And to downplay somebody pushing hard and discovering that they were capable of more than they knew. Am I supposed to cut them out? Like, of course not. So it definitely points to process over product. And if you put a process in a place that you believe in, then it'll naturally lead to a product that you can, that at least is, it doesn't necessarily have to be, if I'm trying to do something that's inclusive, I may not be able to achieve some specific things that it might be out there, but I can achieve something that's worthwhile. And then it's sort of like your own values get revealed. Like, is it more valuable to do something that gets you an accolade from someone else, or is it more valuable to be proud of who you are and proud of your choices and sleep well at night, kind of thing?
Right.
Because for sure, we see all the time people step outside trying to please somebody else, and by their standard, they may have been successful, but they have sold themselves. They've sacrificed their soul in some way that they may not ever be able to get back, kind of thing. The other way is, well, what kinds of things do we believe in, and can we, with an understanding of those beliefs, make something that will never pull us away from that? In fact, I think it'll just get us deeper and deeper into that, make us more aware.
Wow.
So those
are some career lessons that you learn. I mean, that's some things you can impart on kids.
I mean, I hope we're all paying attention to that kind of stuff.
Right.
I hope none of us are so far down any of those rabbit holes that we'll never make our way back.
So what's been an unexpected challenge within your career in music? And I say specifically career in music, not anything else, not like personal challenges. But
well, they go
specifically in music.
Yes, it goes all together for me because my personal and work life are very much intertwined. But I'd say it's like, I wake up in the morning, and I've woke up in the morning every day noticing that I was different looking than most people around me. Just brown skin and whatever mix of ethnic features I have. And so you're aware of that in elementary school. You're aware of that in preschool. You understand that. Don't necessarily know that it means anything or what it means, but you understand that there's something, right? And then, I have my highway friends, and I have my Belhaven friends. You know what I'm saying? Because we were all in classroom together, but you didn't necessarily go home to the same neighborhood, and then that. your activities end up being a little bit different. You gotta like just do different things, and you end up and then of course I have my family too, my cousins especially. I didn't hear hip hop for the first time in my neighborhood. I heard it hanging out with my cousin, up in Northwest. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I heard the show. The first thing I ever heard was Slick Rick, Dougie Fresh, the show, and it is burned in my brain in a special place that
So your exposure to music
and like made me feel closer to my cousin, who I love dearly.
Yeah.
And that family connections is a really important way to build identity. It really, in my case, I have a lot of opportunities for some very positive experiences with family. So, but then I wouldn't hear those songs. I would hear that my friends, especially who have older siblings, they were into, I don't know, like, I never got into the bands Poison or Cinderella. You know what I'm saying? Like, I saw them with their posters on their wall, but a bunch of people that don't look anything like me, and I couldn't feel like I could relate to. Not that I necessarily relate to Slick Rick, but there was still something that was drawing me. I remember Mr. T, and I remember that it's like I don't exactly look like that guy, but there's something there, and so it's like at some point you have to start figuring out how you're going to negotiate that, and it's like I love rock music. There's some of it that, like I said, didn't necessarily draw me towards it, but there's so many. Think about the top 40 '80s hits on karaoke that everyone sings. I know all those songs. I remember
Don't
all those
Stop
songs.
Believing, Journey.
All of it. Yeah. Bon Jovi and all of it.
Yeah.
So and then into the '90s, getting into Nirvana and
I just want to pivot real quick. I hate the fact I'm a military brat, and I grew up all over the world, all different places, and I always hated, and this is kind of a pivot that I hear, that certain music is white music, black music. I hate that so much.
Well, it's false, actually.
What I'm hearing is, I love, when I was growing up, I used to listen to like Limp Bizkit and Korn.
Yeah, of course. I was about to get to Limp Bizkit, man.
Limp Bizkit, Korn, Chevelle, all these random bands, but then also I love DMX.
Well, how much difference is there between Limp Bizkit and DMX, though?
And Dipset and all those things. And I remember I used to have some kind of strife with that too, like, oh, you act like a white boy. I used to hate that so much because I used to love Limp Bizkit.
Of course.
But then I was like, you act like a white boy, but then I'm like, I'm listening to DMX, so now I'm characterized as acting black because I like DMX. And I used to always hate the polarization of this certain music is considered white music and this music is considered black music. And I don't know I guess I'm drawn to that because
I'm with you, man.
maybe that's the obstacle you're getting up to, is that like a certain music does have an identity, but I hate that. Like music, I think I love the universality of music. And even if you ask like certain people when they interview, I remember when I was watching MTV Cribs, and they were showing Big Boy's house, and they're like, "What music do you listen to, Big Boy?" And he had like the most random collection of music.
Yeah,
and I was like, I love all kinds of music.
Yeah, of course.
I can listen to anything, except I don't really like the rock music where they just scream. Like I can't. I like to hear the words. So I would say my only genre of music I don't like is just screaming in the mic rock music. Yeah, death metal where they screaming. But I love, I think one of my favorite groups of all time was Linkin Park. I love Linkin Park to death. But then I love my, Ratchet Rap and Migos and all that. So, I don't know. I just kind of want to go on a tangent because I'm hearing that. Like,
you hear what I'm sort of getting at. And I think my conclusion, there's some things I would point out. Like, I know exactly what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. I want to add also there's other ways I look at it as well, where it's like, I'm not going to begrudge anybody eating Thanksgiving dinner the way they want.
Yeah.
If their family does it the way their family does it, then that's their thing, and that's for them.
Yeah.
And also I want to address something you said, which absolutely, I've experienced. Nobody's going to tell me what's not black about my experience. No, they just can't, because, at no point do I not look like this. You know what I'm saying? At no point am I not in some situation where, it's like the first time I got pulled over by the police.
Yeah.
In a way that I've always been suspicious of, was right in front of West Potomac High School while I was on my way to go teach a marching band, rehearsal.
Right.
And then it took 2 cop cars and a search to tell me my my tag was expired.
Yeah.
And I've always looked back on that going, what in the world was that?
Yeah.
Why were my hands on the hood of a vehicle because my sticker was expired? Because it was expired. But why did it take a search?
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, sure. Maybe that wasn't racially motivated, but it sure felt that way at the time.
Yeah.
And I like. So anyway, all I'm saying is,
the challenge
at some point, I can't leave it up to someone else to tell me all aspects of me and what's a black experience and what's not. Because to me, it's a me experience, and that's part of it. So therefore, it's always going to be in there. It's always going to be in there. Some kind of way.
And that black experience or the me experience has come up in your life musically, right? And that's
absolutely,
and that's the sucky feeling.
So
that's not a good feeling.
So thinking about again back to the dichotomy of Harrisonburg and Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the opportunities were there in Harrisonburg, but the ones that I really were resonating with, the ones that were drawing me, there was just certain ways I was trying to build myself up with my composing, with my improvising, that were being fed. It was just being fed in a different way,
right?
With my even the curriculum at Manhattan School of Music.
Yeah.
There were just opportunities there that were just more attractive to me, and I was growing because of it. So it's like now here I am at Mason, and this is after being at Yale and after being at Michigan.
Yeah.
And here at Mason, like I said, been here a decade, and trying to reconcile all this, trying to talk about like how are we teaching classes?
Okay.
And again, back to and then there are students that are falling through the cracks. Now, why is that? Why is it that? And then we don't. And some of them, they're like, some teachers would say they were proud of their stance. We need to weed some of these kids out. They shouldn't be studying music. And I look at it and I was like, yeah, I definitely understand if somebody's not willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
I definitely get that. But there's some of them that are willing to put in the work.
Is this the kind of alluding to the person that brings their 30% and they tried their best, but they're still bringing their 30%?
I wouldn't necessarily talk about that person in a degree. I'm talking about it like a degree.
Okay.
And I understand that getting a degree in a subject, not everyone is willing to do all the things they're going to need to do, and so it's like the 30% was more about participation in an ensemble,
Yeah.
So it's like maybe just an access point so that they can have an experience. When I'm talking about a degree, I'm talking about someone who comes out. I mean, especially, the different degrees mean different things, but the undergrad level, it's like there's a buffet of things that we need you to experience, at least in a survey kind of way. Just like touch each of these things. We're going to put 20 things in front of you. Touch each of them once.
Yeah.
And out of those 20, let's pick like 4 or 5 that you're going to kind of go deep on. Maybe one specific that you'll go way deep on, and 2 or 3 others that you'll push a little bit on. More than just that,
Yeah.
And then you do your master's degree, and it's like, now let's get all the 20 out of the way, pick your 1 or 2, and just focus on those 2. And then you do your doctorate, and it's like, all right, now we're going to put the 20 back out, and we're going to try and go deep on as many of them as we have time to before you get out of here,
Mm-hmm.
So when you get in a degree, I need you to be, curious about it. I need you to be literate. I need you to, when I say literate, I mean able to, in a compelling and clear way, write about music, write music. It's like compose and notate music.
Yeah.
So there's like different ways of talking about literacy in music, and if you're going to be a performer, it's hard for me to say you're not going to end up teaching somebody something. So it's like there are things that you add to that. It's like, okay, yes, you sound great on your instrument or your singer or whatever it is, but I also need you to be able to give a rudimentary lesson. Like, here's some skills that get you through if somebody's taking their first lesson, at least need you, again, to have touched these things to be able to do something. I don't know, like being able to talk about the music that you're working on with some sort of context, place and time, parts of the continual tradition, things like that. Be able to talk about the construction of the music, and then, in my opinion, at least be able to touch a little bit of composing, a little bit of improvising, and then for some though, ratchet that up more and more. So But for me, with my own personal experience, there's not just anywhere that last thing I said is possible. There's not anywhere, not just anywhere, are they looking at a performer and understanding that that performer wants to put in just as much time composing and improvising. There are plenty of musicians that want to do that, but there's not plenty of places that are set up in a systematic way to handle. If a bunch of students show up wanting to do that, they might find themselves taking care of their personal narrative sort of outside of the curriculum. And the curriculum is more set up to, here's a ladder you need to climb. Some of the stuff relates to you, some of it doesn't, but this is a system that we made, so just do it. Okay. And then at the end of that process, we call you complete in some kind of way.
So it's a little bit of the struggle between education and structure and music discovery.
Personal discovery.
Personal discovery.
Using music, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, quite honestly, I think that's just not just music. That's a lot about higher ed.
Sure.
Sure. We have a systematic way to get a degree, but we're also encouraging young adults to grow as young people. So we have you do these classes, boom, 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 but there's definitely some experiences of living on your own and.
Of course.
But yeah, I think that's the hard. I mean, that's why we have this whole. They have those checklists, like you said, for freshmen. Like,
right.
Don't just do these things in class. Make sure you join a club and this, because there's so much more to this world.
So if you're living in a big city and you're a musician, and there's like different ways that you can be a professional in that city. You can play in this ensemble or that ensemble. And this ensemble handles this kind of music, and that ensemble handles that kind of music, and at your church it's a whole other kind of thing happening.
Yeah.
It makes sense to stand out by being sort of best in class at a certain set of skills.
Right.
That makes sense. It's like if there's only room for the top 10% to actually work in a way that you can pay bills, then that does make sense to push your way to be that.
Yeah.
But if you're in a community where you might end up being responsible for lots of different types of music, so when ceremonies come up and parties come up and concerts come up, and you're very close to the only game in town, if you come in there with only one thing, you won't even be able to keep the ecosystem going yourself. So it's like someone who's kind of separate from that giant machine kind of ecosystem, they might find that it would serve them better if they could sort of custom fit what they do to the environment.
Right.
So you could look at the Green Machine as being that. I could have come in here and done what do pep bands do, and then I just look around and see, and then I just do those things, and we wouldn't be sitting here doing this right now because you would have never heard of me, right?
Right.
And I didn't do all these things so that I would end up on podcasts. I did these things because I felt like it just made more sense to make a program for the community that's actually there.
Right.
And the evidence I have that was I don't know if it was the right call, but it was definitely a good call.
Yeah.
Is every time I show up to a rehearsal and I got almost, twice as many musicians as I can even use at a performance.
Right. Kids wanting to learn.
Want to be part of it.
Be
right.
part of it.
Feeling like it's, sometimes it's about learning, sometimes it's about just being together. There's a lot of reasons why people show up to rehearsals. And then our performances are just an extension of rehearsal. We're not in the rehearsal. Every time we're in a rehearsal to get ready for performance, it feels one way. Every time we're in a rehearsal just to get in there and play and enjoy the moment, and then we get in front of people and it's like, that's what they respond to. Do we sound better if the NCAA calls us the top band in the nation? Do we sound better than all other bands in the nation? No, probably not. There's probably lots of little things you could point to and say, I've heard this group and that group.
Yeah.
But what you get caught up in is
Energy.
The sound and the dancing and the screaming and the smiles and the makeup and just the whole thing that it is. And then, I got to admit, there are some things that we play I would put up against anybody.
Now, we almost to the end of the episode, but I definitely said one thing, too. I had to make a note. Your band has a very HBCU vibe.
Absolutely.
And because I went to Bowie, before I transferred to JMU, I went to Bowie State. And as you know, it's a whole different band culture in HBCUs.
Sure.
And you primarily don't really get that band culture in a PWI.
Yep.
But this band kind of has that. Could you speak to? You think that has that? Am I off?
Of course
that?
it does.
Am I off on that assessment, or
No, I think you're
Would
right,
you-
but
would you-
I think it's also impossible to ignore that there's plenty of sort of very standard what you would see at any Power 5. There's some standard stuff we do as well. So it's like
Yeah.
I'd say a better way to think of the Green Machine is we've mixed as many things as we could come up with.
right?
And so it's like we don't want to leave anything. And in fact, if anything, I want to make the most of the uniqueness of different things and highlight those things and kind of get it's like so from an educational standpoint, if someone's going to come up and try to be a teacher, they've had a chance to try out this and this and this
These
and this
styles,
and this.
these different styles
Like I
of
said,
music.
it's undergrad, so they touch it. Now they may go to another school and they only want to play these soul tunes and Motown tunes and
Yeah, got it.
but they've had that experience.
Yeah.
And then let's say they're at that school and then all of a sudden somebody says, "Oh, can y'all do?" and then whatever other style thing, and they're not going to say no, we don't do that. They're like, "Yeah, we've done that before." And they,
I'll figure it out.
and just as you're sitting here talking about DMX and Limp Bizkit, it's like, man, there's so much similarity in their performance styles.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, okay, fine. There's differences there. There might even be differences in the audience a bit, but I bet you there's tons of overlap
Yes.
in that audience.
Of
You
course.
know,
Yes.
so.
Music is very universal.
So the same thing goes with us. You know, it's like, but since you play Fall Out Boy and I don't know.
Migos.
Well, I mean, with us, it's Led Zeppelin, and then it's Smokey Robinson,
Yeah.
and then it's Kanye, and it's like you put all those together, and you start to find that there's more similar about them than there's
Yes.
different about them.
Yes, true.
And you know, I make jokes all the time about, you know, F major has one flat no matter what style we play in, and G major has one sharp no matter what style we play in. And so
Right.
it's like, obviously that's a little bit of an oversimplification when you get into some stylistic considerations, but
Yeah.
I mean, the basics are the basics, and 4/4 is 4/4, and
Yeah.
and so then it's like 100 beats a minute, still going to be 100 beats a minute, and then so once you've addressed that, then you can also understand that when you're playing a funk tune, this kind of thing happens, and when it's rock, it's going to be more like this, and when it's straight up the national anthem in a military bearing,
Yeah.
it's going to be this, and so I think I think people coming through who get that and have that experience and absorb all that, you know, some absorb it consciously, some of them it just happens to them and they don't even realize it's happening to them.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll sort that out later in life. Again, back to the process. I'm proud of that process, and then the results, the product. Of course, I'm proud of it because I see the process that got it there.
Yeah.
And so it's like we continue to make something that no one's ever seen before. Every time we put a new tune in, the only thing that might be analogous to what it is something else that we've done that we haven't seen out there because they haven't brought the strings in and they don't have the rappers at the games and
Yeah.
whatever the things are. So
Yeah.
that's just our thing. We believe in it because we believed in what it took to get there, and then the product just is what it is. And then the magic of it is we make great decisions on crafting that process, and we love our product.
It's fun.
So-
I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I have enjoyed the game. I very, like I said, it's very memorable. When I
Good.
first started grad school, I went to a basketball game. So we're at the part of the show. We're kind of at the end. We call this segment "Shot for Shot." I mean, if we were in my home bar, we'd actually probably take some shots, but
All
we're
right.
not. But we're just gonna totally different, totally random tangent. You get to ask me any question. I get to ask you any question.
Okay.
Would you like to go first? I'll go first.
You go first. Let me get the scope.
Okay, so has anyone ever told you look like the Godfather from WWE?
Huh.
And if so, if you did hear that, was that your envision when you thought of the Doc Nix
Man, the Doc
persona?
Nix, the Doc Nix.
Look like a Green Machine pimp, you know? Like,
Well,
but do you know? I mean, you know the Godfather, right?
I mean,
Has anyone ever? You know?
Yeah.
You have to Google it later.
I'll Google it. Yeah, I mean, to me, wrestling is Junkyard Dog and Andre the
Oh
Giant.
no! See, I grew up in the era of the '90s with the Godfather.
Yeah, by the time The Rock came around, I was kind of on my way out.
Okay, so then you don't know about the Godfather.
But I'll check it out. Yeah, well, now that you say it, I can't say no one's ever. I think I have heard that one before. You know, the idea of the pimp as a trope.
Yeah.
You know, it's there's a lot of fun that can be had with that, but I'd say it can also get problematic when So, for instance, it would be a real shame if anyone thought I was trying to portray a sex trafficker.
Oh, of course
You know what I'm saying?
not. Of course not.
And like I understand, I hear the fun in what you're saying, and I understand exactly, and I just want to make sure that I say in front of people that this conversation can take a problematic direction under the wrong circumstances.
Yeah, too.
You know, showmanship is showmanship, and the suits. I was watching Flavor of Love, and I saw something. You know what I'm saying? I saw something Flavor was wearing.
Yes.
And that was part of the beginning of the idea. The movie Drumline, the bad guy band director has his pinstripes.
The Morris Brown guy.
And so, you know what I'm saying? So it's like
very stylistic.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like black man got style, you know? You put on a
I like it.
You put on a bright colored suit and then attention is drawn to you, you know?
Yes. I love how you said Flavor of Love because that definitely
absolutely.
Now I more have that vision in my head than The Godfather.
But like think about anything you've ever seen Quincy Jones wearing at an award show or
so very old. It's more like an old school style, old school flash.
Just some of that, but it's like it's up to date too. I mean, I wouldn't say anybody's looking at me in everything I'm wearing. I mean, there's a big variety of what I wear too. So it's like
different colors, different.
It's always trying to be in the zone of school colors, Mason school colors.
Yeah.
Green, gold, white, black, and then I push on it a little bit. You know, some of the gold. One of my gold suits. It's really kind of brown, but it's like kind of in the area of being gold. And of course, there's gold on it.
So you saw Flavor of Love. When you came in as the band director? We're going off. I'm doing like 3 questions. When you came in as the band director, did you automatically go right into wearing that, or you did a couple years?
No.
You did a couple years.
I knew pretty much from the beginning that I didn't want to go out there wearing a golf shirt and some khakis. I knew I didn't want to do that for a performance. You know what I'm saying? It's like there. You know, when I'm at a staff function, that's the athletics uniform. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when I'm performing,
it's
go back to high school. I got to wear a flashy military style uniform around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It brings a personality to the band.
And also it gives you access. You get permission to interact with people in a way that you can't if you just look like
a normal band director.
You know what I'm saying? Or just a normal person out there. Period. You know. So.
So did you said you got hired in 2012? 2006. Sorry, I'm thinking about when I got my master's.
Yeah.
2006. When was the first time you dressed up as Doc Nix?
Yeah, October of 2006.
You did it.
Yeah, at Mason Madness. Just thinking about what was I gonna wear, and then I got that idea, and I went to Springfield Mall.
Yeah. Okay.
And I found.
Hold up, where in Springfield Mall? Because I know exactly probably what store you went to. Was it the one on the second level?
Second level, yep.
That's where I got my prom suit.
Yeah. Modern Image, I think that was.
Yes, Modern Image. Yeah. That's where I got my prom suit.
Yeah, so I bought like maybe the first like 4 Doc Nix suits at that place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is like not nostalgic, but like I can connect because I know exactly what store. Okay, so Green Machine off the break, you wore the Doc Nix persona. Mm-hmm. And I would say, you know, before you get to ask my question, it definitely it brings a personality to the whole universe. It's like almost like that's what's a uniqueness about it. I think it brings a whole energy. Like as you said, you're performing.
Yeah.
I feel like when we go to the games, I think almost similar to HBCU, people come to see the band sometimes more, just as much as to see the basketball team.
So. And that, you know, that's an asset over time because the teams are going to be up and down. But if I do the band right, we'll always be up. You know,
yeah,
so
exactly.
Try to go for that, so we're always contributing.
Yeah.
And then like I said, I'm performing, so it's like think about a mascot. I'm like, we talk about it as being I'm part mascot, part cheerleader, part drum major, and it's like you put those things together, and that's what you're seing.
It's Doc.
Did you
say off the break that I was gonna be? So I saw the suit, Modern Image. How'd you come up with the name Doc Nix?
That was already in place. I was already performing as Doc Nix before I even stepped on campus. Yeah, I said, it's just an abbreviation of my name. I grew up with my boy Brody, who called me Nix, and then I got the doctor, and we just added the Doc to it.
Perfect.
And that was it.
There you go.
And then I was gonna just to close this all out. One of my suits I bought in Beijing while on a trip, with the Mason Jazz Band, and it looks like. It's a traditional gi is what it is, and it's green with gold dragons on it. It just looked like something I had to have, and that was a step to the side in terms of the kinds of things I had been wearing.
That's dope.
I have this one gold suit that's kind of similar, has the same Mandarin collar. So it's like in some respects it's in that realm, but it felt like a jump at the time. I was doing something wild, you know. But like that one looks like the fun of it being you can't tell if I'm in a kung fu movie or an R&B video. And so it's like, well, then the answer is...
I mean, this could be both, like Cisco, you know, Unleash the Dragon.
It's like, exactly. It's like, if that's the case, you have understood what we're after. I had another friend, in fact, she was talking about making me something, and she said, she captured it. She said, I need to mix The Wiz with Morpheus. And it's like, that is somebody who gets it. That is somebody who's absolutely after
I like that, The Wiz and Morpheus.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, just
stylistic and it's fun. And it's fun.
Yep, it's got an edge to it. And,
yeah.
It looks fancy, and
yes.
So that's it. All right, so for you, being that you grew up here in the neighborhood, obviously not literally in Fairfax.
No.
But you spent, you know, some important time in the Northern Virginia area.
Yeah.
And then you made the decision to work at Mason. Right?
I made the decision to try,
but you're here.
And they hired me.
You accepted a job, and you're here, and you come to work every day, and you continue to do so. What is it you feel like you're doing for the Northern Virginia area, the people you have connections to, the people that you, in some respects, represent? What is it that you feel like could be something that you're going to be able to and are doing for them because you're in a position someplace that's as important as the local university?
Oh, okay. Interesting. I think resources, one of the things that automatically pops out to me is my recent membership as a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. And with that, you know, our seat is Arlington and Alexandria. And the most direct impact that I've had so far is I go back to Mount Vernon. They have a program for young black men called Men of Vision and Promise. And I get to talk to them.
Sweet.
And it's kind of full circle because I participated in a program like that at Mount Vernon in the 10th grade. It was an AVID program. It wasn't called MVP. And so I think with I'd say the thing that I get to give back to community is now that I work at a career center, when I go back and talk to students or talk to people in the community, I'm deemed as the career expert, and I get to do career development outside of Mason and use the office and use my position in my office to give me credibility and some kind of, not say status, but saying like, hey kids, I want to help you with your resume and career development. I work at a university. So I think that's the benefit of working at Mason, is that it gives me a credible stance to do the things in the community that I always wanted to do.
Sure.
The things I wanted to do with Alpha, with young men. I always found the benefit of mentorship and helping other young black men similar to myself. And so the fact that I'm a higher ed professional, it gives me, basically just a platform to do so. And then I would go further and say, I think with regards to the university, I love working at Mason because, like, what I say is I found my people here at Mason, and it's not people in regards to race or whatever. It's like there's quite often a lot of times when I work with a student, I see myself in that student because I see a student of Northern Virginia that could have been just like me, that went to Mount Vernon and then stayed in the area and wants to, get a job in DC and just kind of make it in this area. I see myself in that person because I grew up in this area. So I'm like, oh, where you live? Oh, it's like a kid like, I live in Woodbridge. Oh, word, like, you want to go and commute to D? It's like, I feel like I don't think I could have that same level of rapport if I worked at a university like in, boonies of Kansas,
right.
or Alaska or whatever, because I don't have a tie to that community outside of the university. So I think that, I definitely was very purposeful and very strategic of saying, if I were to get a job in higher ed, I wanted to be in the area that I grew up, and I want to live here, and I want to,
I knew as I was finishing, I wanted to come back to this area. I was away for 12 years. I wanted to come back.
Yeah, I got my master's here in 2012, and I didn't get a full-time position back here until 2007, so it was 5 years. But in the back of my mind, I was like, this is the community I want to be a part of because it's the part of the community I grew up in. Like, Is it Richmond Highway? No, but I do definitely see students on campus that went to Mount Vernon and West
Absolutely.
Potomac. And I love hearing that too. When I say,
And
oh,
and
what high school you go
and
to?
we claim medicine too.
Yeah, and Hayfield
You
and
know,
all those
Lee,
things.
yeah, all of it.
And I'm like, oh wow, like you went, oh like da da da, like so. I think that's a very special thing for especially, and I bet a lot of the faculty member and staff that do grow up here and work here, I think they do get that sense of giving back in the higher ed realm to the community I grew up in. Like, you know, whether it's someone that works as a professor in physics, but they grew up and went to Herndon High School, or whatever.
Right.
They're like, I'm giving back and educating people that were like me. So
TC,
yeah,
South County,
yeah,
all
just
of it.
Fairfax, Loudoun, all the surrounding counties.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely a reason why. And I hopefully, like I said, the skills I'm learning as a professional allows me to do things out in the community with Alpha, or do things, you know, with, you know.
How's the podcast fit in that?
Oh, how's the podcast? I don't know. I mean, I think I just got a lane where it's like, I know that I can have many guests. I mean, there's so many great guests, such as yourself, that work with me, that could share such useful things that I think the community can listen to.
Sweet.
And like usually, most of the time, I mean, my guests have been people within my life, so it's great to just incorporate the people I met here on
Well, if
campus.
they're not in your life, they become part of your life, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the reason why I like Mason and now. So, the end of the show, I like to give you an opportunity. The platform is yours to give any shout outs and plugs that you want. Especially, I would like you to follow up via in the show notes. So I can make sure that people that listen to this episode and read the show notes can find the Instagrams and Twitters or whatever. But here's your platform.
All right.
Shout outs and plugs. And also, shout outs to people that, you know, like people that motivate you too.
Sure. Well, as always, all the, you know, folks who in my family, you know, especially my mother, who sacrificed everything to make sure I could get where I needed to go. All the cousins who gave me lots of support and inspiration. All my teachers. Earlier we were talking a little bit about Ernest over at West Potomac, and just all the ways he exposed me to things, and always showed me that you can do every kind of music right next to every other kind of music. It's, as you know, you just have a different kind of experience based on what you're working on, and then draw those skills into the other things. You might surprise yourself. I definitely want to, you know, think about everybody who's ever pushed me on my instrument, you know, encouraged me with my writing, performing, and all that. You know, my drama teacher at West Potomac, Robin Bennett, and when she started coming at me saying basically I could go to any music school, I wouldn't have to set my sights on anything specific, but if there's a music school out there, that's the kind of music school I should be at. And so that really shaped my path in terms of what I could think of for myself, you know, particularly when the opportunity to think about a place like Yale came up. And I didn't see myself as a, you know, as a super high achieving,
Yeah.
you know, student that could go to an Ivy League. But later in my life, as I started thinking of myself differently, that was the kind of music school that I could go to and thrive at, which is exactly what happened. So, you know, those kind of teachers that planted that stuff in my head. Willie Ruff, who I met at Yale, who gave me some survival skills, particularly as a young African American male, things that I was going to have to be looking out for, so that I wouldn't be blindsided by them, and then could continue on my path. Ed Sareth at Michigan, Fritz Kenzig at Michigan, who were sort of my two main mentors there, and made sure I did all the things I was supposed to do, and always found ways to celebrate the things that they didn't expect from me. And then here at Mason, Bill Reeder, who just gave me all the guidance up front, like front load the guidance, and is dominating the way I think about all kinds of ways I organize myself and manage my crew. And
And
you
your
know,
kids, all them kids that you
yeah, absolutely. You know, and then I was going to say just all the things that the administration and all the things that Angel Cabrera has done that have made it possible for the arts to continue to thrive and grow and sort of see itself in the 21st century and all the things that the arts could be. And then every member that's come through the band, some genuine, real friendships for life that started off as just, some kid that signed up for my class, and then before you know it, I'm speaking at their wedding, or they're having me over when they have a kid, or coming by the office, coming by my place, just a little text here and there. My crew that sits in these offices with me, Jeremy and Julie and Joan and Ryan and Angie and a million others, Justin, and a million others that are just always in here bringing their talents and their enthusiasm and their dreams. And then, we all lift each other up. And, keeping me sane at all times. Lauren is my main support system. I couldn't make it through a day without the encouragement that she gives me. Place to land when I need to, and definitely keeps me fed. So just kind of all that. And then on the outside, it's like the heroes that are like really blazing trails. I love everything. Every time Questlove opens his mouth, I feel like it's like time for me to pay attention. And at some point, I want to perform for the Obamas.
Yeah.
And make that happen. And I always feel like if they're ever going to make Green Machine the movie, that Common needs to play Doc Nix.
All right, shout out, hear the Common, hear that.
And hopefully we can get Mark Wahlberg to play Ryan Capaccio, who is the leader of the VCU pep band. And
all right.
Common versus Marky Mark would be an amazing, amazing show.
All right, we're pitching that now. We're pitching that now.
So,
right,
that's probably plenty.
And then the plugs.
You want to find Doc Nix and the Green Machine, find us on Facebook, Doc Nix and the Green Machine. Look us up on Twitter as GMU Green Machine. Instagram, I think it's the same, GMU Green Machine.
Yeah. There's a brass band too on Twitter, on Instagram. What's that one?
You can find Dirty Gold.
Yeah, that's it.
Man, we got so many of those things that I couldn't even possibly think out of my brain right now what they all are.
We'll put some on the show notes.
Yeah. Look up the Dirty Gold. Look up the Patriots Fife and Drum Corps, also known as Ceremonial Corps. What else? Our Declaration or Mason Open Color Guard, our Mean Green or indoor drumline percussion theater thing that we do called A Million Things. George Mason Drumline. Spirit groups, especially our Spirit Drumline that performs with the Green Machine. Every little rock band that is splintered off. Shout out to New Vibe. A bunch of the groups back in the day, Greater Good and some things that are sort of still spinning around. Inspiration on the outside, I got to throw something to my boy Ross Huff and Brandon Duncan Andes and the Mac Pods from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Always showing that if you got something that's worth going after, then you just do that and you go after it with everything you got. So that's a big part of why the Green Machine is what it is. All the wild creativity from the Yale Precision Marching Band that has definitely turned into a lot of the more positive practices of the Green Machine, and Marching Royal Dukes, who set the standard for how big, how loud, how good, all of that.
All right, well, thank you so much, Doc Nix. This was quite an episode.
Yeah, man.
We touched a bunch of topics. Maybe a couple months down the line, we'll do a repeat.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Thank you so much, Positive Filter listeners, for listening. If you like this episode, share it with your family and friends. If you want to leave a voicemail for the podcast, call 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Or find Positive Filter on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you so much, Doc.
Oh, man,
and let's do this again.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.